Insights. I'm your host, Ellie Edmunson, president of organization Youth for Justice and Change, in which our goal is to educate the youth through education, leadership, activism, and service. And we also to have a say in the decision-making of Pitt County. Today I have a guest with me, Miss Jane Rose, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jane Rose. I'm the pastor of Fountain Presbyterian Church and a long-time advocate for the environment. I was one of the organizers for the Climate Action Rally last September, and we were working on a wonderful Earth Day that unfortunately did not happen because of COVID-19. I'm on the subcommittee for the Environmental Advisory Committee for Greenville City Council. And at our church, we have a community garden as one way and have classes working for the health of the community, working to prevent diabetes and health problems, which is all connected actually to our environment.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you here today to talk about climate and environmental activism and how our community can further our activism through environment and sustainability. So my first question for you today is, what does environmental activism mean to you, and how do you portray that in your community?
I think it has multiple aspects to it. I think we have to advocate by the way we live, the choices that we make every day as an individual, how we eat, because actually meat is one of the production, the industrial complex is one of the biggest polluters, which I didn't know until I started learning. So, for instance, if people ate even one meal a week or had one day a week that they didn't eat meat, it could make it could save 100 billion gallons of water, reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 1.2 million tons of carbon dioxide. It's pretty extraordinary just what, say, Meatless Mondays, it sounds good, but, choose whatever. It means advocating in groups and working for justice, because it is very much an issue of justice, because our environment and the degradation to our environment is affecting the black and brown peoples more. It affects the poor people more. In so many ways, polluting industries get placed close to them because they don't have the political power. They are often in low-lying areas, so when the rising waters come, they don't have the ability to move as easily as other people. So I think you have to work and vote for the ones who can vote. That is incredibly important, because if we can't elect people all the way from local through our president who realize the incredible concerns of climate, because we think COVID-19 is an enormous issue, which it is. But the actual climate crisis, we will get through this hopefully, and it will go away, but the climate will not go away, and it's getting worse every day, and it is going to impact every aspect of our lives, of business, of government. People are concerned about immigration now, and so many people coming in. Well, they're talking about billions of environmental immigrants as the waters rise. So it's a problem we just need to deal with, and the youth are the ones who are going to see the worst effects. And the youth are the ones that have the most power to do something about this and to educate their parents and to, during this time when we're off from school and we're sheltering at home, it's sort of a wonderful time to try things that you haven't tried before. Tell your folks that I'll cook tonight. Learn how to cook. Plant a garden. See our connection with the world. It's so incredible that we see our interconnection, how everything depends on everything else. Another thing, during this time, when you have time on your hands, if you have Amazon Prime, and it may be other places, there's a documentary called Call of the Forest, which I found fascinating, that really connects or shows us how everything is connected. And one of the examples they talked about over a century ago on the northernmost of the main islands of Japan, they decided to clear cut the forest to plant farms. Well, the winds were really strong. The winds blew all the topsoil away when they didn't have the trees to hold the soil, and it became a desert. But what also happened was that the sea around there became a desert. And they didn't understand what happened to the life. I mean, the whole marine ecosystem collapsed. And then one day a scientist realized that it's the fulvic acid, it's a form of iron that comes from when leaves break down from the humus, that would then, the rains would wash from the forest into the sea, and that was what fed the kelp forest in the sea, and which is the life source of all the life in the sea. So the fishermen became some of the biggest advocates helping to replant the forest so that the life of the sea could be restored. I just thought that was fascinating. It became a saying in Japan, seek a fish by climbing a tree.
Wow. So, Ms. Jane, you have been an activist a little bit longer than I have. I think I'm a newly introduced activist. How, your time in Eastern North Carolina, how has climate stability and environmental stability shifted since it has become such a hot topic with mass media and with social media? How have you seen that shift in our communities?
Well, when we were planning Earth Day, I was really excited to see how many different groups there are around who were concerned about what is happening and wanted to be part of Earth Day, including our government, the city of Greenville. And we had a wonderful recycling. Unfortunately, that is being challenged right now, and I'm really concerned that because of losses of monies, because of COVID and people losing jobs and stuff, that if we're not really advocating for it, that our environmental programs will suffer, and that people will forget about how important it is to be reflecting that. For instance, people are so concerned about germs. They're using so much plastic right now. And so we need to be particularly aware that we're not drinking out of plastic bottles, but bringing our own water bottles, and that we are taking our own bags to the store so that we're not using single-use plastic. And that we just keep being aware. And for the kids, I love what your organization is doing. I think it's so critical. It is just so important. And there are some other groups too, like Love Us Sea Turtle, that are doing beautiful things. They have the gardens down off the Greenway and an orchard they're working on, and was it NC Stop Plastic, and there's several plastic groups that the kids are leading, and we want to join and follow and support in any and every way that we can.
Yes, actually, my organization's vice president, Ms. Helena, she runs another organization that focuses on environmentalism called Bye Bye Plastic Bags. And that is a worldwide network of people coming together to try to stop climate change, in which they advocate and educate people on what's going on in the world in terms of climate and environmentalism. So I think that's an awesome group, and that's a way that our community can come in too to be a part of this.
Absolutely, and Helena was a real help in organizing in September.
Yes.
So yes, and when the youth speak, people listen even more when you're informed and your passion, because we know that it's the future, and the future is yours. Though we are feeling effects right now, things are happening so much faster than we ever realized. Yeah.
Yes. So speaking of the youth, my organization is Youth for Justice and Change. We focus on the younger generation. How can the youth help to preserve climate and environment, and how can they be activists as well through this cause, though they might not yet be able to vote, some of these kids? So how can we help? How can we help?
Well, I know some of them can't vote, but they can tell their parents and their older friends how important these causes are. So that's really powerful. Also, I think they can, the way they eat, they can try to change their diet. If you're having a hamburger, maybe try one of these, what are they called? I haven't tried one yet.
The plant-based ones.
The plant-based ones,
Yes.
That's right. They can plant pollinators, because 1 out of every 3 bites we take is thanks to bees, and we're really losing our bee population. So planting pollinators is certainly something youth can do, and it's beautiful. Yeah. At our garden, at church, it is just so alive, because the flowers are blooming, the bees, and there's just so much life. There's a real hum in the garden, which is great. And then if you have pollinators, you are bringing in also beneficial insects, which help eat the bad insects. So you don't have to, you can have an organic garden, so you're working with the soil, and it's a living thing that will feed us if we will feed it. So they can advocate and get into tree planting projects, because planting trees is one of the best things that we can do. And when kids speak up, I think adults really do want to support their passions. So if they're telling their parents not to buy those plastic things, if they are trying to go to restaurants that maybe don't throw away everything, but saying let's, or bringing their own silverware or their own bottles, so they're just using less. Clothes. Reusing clothes, sharing clothes with each other, making a fashion statement wearing vintage clothes, because that's another huge polluter, which I didn't realize. And also, so many of the clothes come from third world countries where there are no protections for workers, and they are dumping toxins from the dyes directly into the water. Working conditions are just not good. So by consuming or not consuming, or consuming very thoughtfully, you have tremendous power.
Mm-hmm. I've definitely seen a lot of young people with my generation leading this cause. For example, you said the clothes and the fashion statement. Thrifting with my generation has become such a big thing.
That's wonderful.
Love it. It's one of my favorite things too. And then there's local influencer Mr. Beast, who did this huge video planting thousands of trees in our community. And I mean, he has millions of followers and subscribers, so all those kids that watch him got that idea. So I think it's a generation of inspiration.
Yes, and I would love to connect with Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
And I think that we could also, get more land available for planting trees. I would love to see this be such a youth movement and have a great time doing it and be working for your future. I mean, it's a win-win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So right now in our society, we are going through a national pandemic, is what the CDC calls it, COVID-19. So how does environmentalism directly correlate with COVID-19 and that it is a health concern in our society?
Well, I think that they have been sort of expecting pandemic. Actually, we've had smaller ones, nothing quite the size of this before, because as we're getting greater and greater population, people are cutting down more and more forest, and the animals are having less place to live, and so we're in closer contact than we have been before, which tends to allow disease to jump from species to species. Also, the industrial meat complex and how animals are kept in such terrible conditions, really awful conditions, and they're so filled with antibiotics and hormones to keep them growing despite the bad conditions, which again creates conditions to allow viruses and bacteria to jump from one species to another. So when we challenge, again, it's this interdependence, when we don't take care of one part of the population or of our creation, then we're all affected by it, because it was created so incredibly that every part depends and is fed by other parts. So when you start taking out pieces, and we keep losing species more and more every year, we are reducing our ability to fight disease and just really endangering ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, according to the North Carolina Conservation Network, an increase of environmental health concerns and racial inequality has a direct correlation impacting one another. For example, natural disasters hit low-income and children of color families harder than they would affluent families. And then COVID-19 also hits Black, brown, and also Native American families at 5 times the rate as it does white families. So what resources or strategies can our community look to lessen these disparities and close these gaps?
It's a really complicated issue, but I think when groups can organize and advocate for themselves, stand up when people want to bring in industries that are polluting, be willing to choose by what kind of cars you choose, to choose ones that use less gasoline, to advocate for cleaner energy, because that's our future. Fossil fuels are killing us, literally. And also, I think, like, we are working for, if we can get more people thinking about food and how they eat, because diet is a huge problem with diabetes, stroke, obesity, and these are all things that make you more susceptible to bad outcomes with COVID-19. And making sure people, particularly, I think, with indigenous groups, you see that many don't even have access to clean water. So their health can't be as good when they're not eating, having access to healthy green foods or clean water. So that, those health problems, secondary causes, seems to be what is causing most of the deaths through COVID-19, are having these other problems as well. And unfortunately, in eastern North Carolina, we are like a third world in numbers of people. We have much higher than the rest of the state, the country, of diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and stroke. So it's all connected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think our community can do more to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, whether it's wearing a mask or carrying hand sanitizer, and also making sure that people have the resources available for these items, so not stockpiling. Still in the stores, it is difficult to find supplies that you need nowadays.
It is.
You go to Target and they still have empty shelves. And that negatively impacts people that might not be able to get out there every day or very often to get these supplies, whether it is working people or elderly people or younger people too who are in school. And I think that our community needs to come together and support one another in this time, because it is a pandemic and it is going to negatively impact our economy, our government, our society, every aspect of our life if we don't address it now and we don't make it a part of our everyday safety.
Yes, beautifully said. Mask is a way of saying I care about my community. It should never be a political thing. It's a health issue. It's a moral issue. I want my neighbor to be healthy, and I want my neighbor to respect me and also wear a mask. So together we can go forward and not be spreading this disease.
Yes,
So
definitely. Thank you so much for coming on the show with me today, Miss Rose. Do you have any closing remarks for our viewers that are watching today, looking to either learn more about environmentalism or join the cause?
Oh, one thing I would suggest is let's use this time to reset. We don't want to go back to how things were. We want to go forward to better. We want to have learned that maybe a lot of things that we thought were important, or at least were occupying so much of our time, when they've been stripped away, we've realized those weren't important at all. What's important is caring for each other, and this is a wonderful time to get outside and use your eyes and your ears and just see what gifts are all around and cherish them, because when we know them and love them, then we care for them. Right now there's so many dragonflies out there, and dragonflies eat hundreds of mosquitoes, but they can hover, they can fly directly up or down or backwards. They are the most amazing little creatures. And the fireflies out at night, all these magical things to discover. So anyway.
All right. Thank you so much for being on here with me today. And thank you so much for listening in. You can learn more about Pitt County Youth for Justice and Change at pcyfjc.com. Thank you.